Namaste and a very good morning, a very warm welcome to our webinar on comparative world literatures. It is our great pleasure to have our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Hindi University, Professor Nandini Sahu ma'am. Welcome ma'am. And our very distinguished speakers, the eminent authors, Ms. Satbir Chadha and Dr. Santosh Bakaya ma'am. Welcome to both of you. Now, I must say, through this webinar, we will explore the intersections of culture, identity, and narrative across borders and boundaries. So, now I am very honored to introduce the chairperson of our webinar, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Nandini Sahu ma'am. Professor Nandini Sahu ma'am is a highly esteemed academician, poet, and creative writer who currently holds the position of Vice Chancellor at Hindi University, West Bengal. With an illustrious academic background, she previously served as the director of the School of Foreign Languages at IGNOU, New Delhi. Professor Sahu is a prolific author with 23 books to her credit, earning her the distinction of being a best selling author on Amazon. Her academic prowess is highlighted by her double gold medals in both graduation and post graduation. She has been recognized for her outstanding contributions to English studies with the prestigious Literary Award Gold Medal from the Honorable Vice President of India. Her latest book is Medusa, a collection of poems published by Black Eagle Books. Some of her notable accolades include the Michael Madhusudan Academy Award and the Lifetime Achievement Award in the year 2024. As a professor of English, her research focuses on diverse areas such as new literatures, critical theory, folklore and culture studies, Hindu studies, Indian knowledge systems, comparative literatures, and American literature. Now, I would request Honorable Vice Chancellor of Hindi University, Professor Nandini Sahu, ma'am, for the inaugural speech. Ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Paramita, and a very good morning to all of you. I take the privilege of inviting two very eminent scholars and creative writers of the country today to the Hindi University Special Lecture Series that commenced in the month of January when I joined the Hindi University as the Vice Chancellor. We have had multiple lectures as of now. Almost 30 or 32 speakers have delivered their important research and their lectures in this series. And today, the two of us are going to enrich the series even more. And we feel privileged that you are a part of it. You accepted our invitation. And about Professor Santosh Bakaya and Satbir Chadda, madam, I want to put it on record that both of them have been very serious about creative writing and the trade and whatever they have been doing in the academic circle since decades. They have contributed immensely to poetry, to fiction, and to critical writings, to research in English studies in India. In fact, both of them have been bilingual, and I have seen more than once that they have delivered lectures and they have published their research in multiple languages, and they have also contributed immensely to the field of translation studies. Today, the lectures that they are going to deliver are going to create new dimensions for the faculty and the students of Hindi University. And we are going to take the research that they will be introducing today. We are going to take the research further in terms of our research pedagogy and coursework in the Hindi University. About the Hindi University lecture series, I want to inform both the speakers today that we started this lecture series with all seriousness to create a new discipline called comparative world literatures. There are departments of comparative literature in many universities in the country. You must have noticed that. There is also one UGC NET examination on comparative literature, and many students are qualifying that UGC NET examination, and it becomes a bit of problematic for the students of comparative literature to fit into the university departments, because many university departments do not have comparative literature as a discipline. Rather, comparative literature has been treated as an appendix to uh, language studies and literary studies. Say in English department, earlier in the UGC NET examination in the English, we used to give a couple of questions on comparative literature. That's it. But in due course of time, with the intervention of culture studies and cultural studies in literary circle, we have introduced new, UGC NET examinations like comparative literatures. We have introduced folk literature, another, that is paper number 72 in UGC NET. We have also introduced Hindu studies, then one NET on Indian knowledge systems, and one NET examination on foreign languages. So when I came to Hindi University as the Vice Chancellor, I did a need assessment survey on the various UGC NET examinations, and I found that we can take all these NET examinations into consideration and create a new discipline, a department where multiple languages can be taught as MA and BA and diploma and certificate courses, with the NEP's emphasis on multiple exits and entrances.
नहीं दरवाजा नहीं बंद करो, साइकिल बाहर ले जाओ।
Can you please mute? Please mute it.
साइकिल बाहर ले जाए बजाय
Satbir, can you please mute? Yes.
me? No, I'm not mute. I'm not mute.
Okay, fine. So, we have taken the UGC NET syllabi like English and multiple languages, the 22 Indian scheduled languages, and also English, which is the 23rd official language. We have taken the syllabi of all those NET examinations, and also we have looked at the UGC NET in folk literature, in tribal literature, in foreign languages, in Hindu studies and Indian knowledge systems. And then we are trying to create a new discipline where we can introduce many MA programs. The other day we were having a discussion that we have an MA in translation studies, and the students are doing very well. They are placed as Rajbhasha Adhikari in various institutions. So Hindi University students and teachers are deeply into research, and they have been very, very serious about their career. So we are planning to create some more, some flexibility, some platform for the students and the faculty of Hindi University where they can fit into many things. Now, gone are the days when our parents used to tell us that you have to be an engineer, or you have to be a doctor, or you have to be a lecturer, or you have to be a professor. Now, we are preparing our children for life. Our students should be prepared for life. So once they get out of Hindi University with these multiple MA programs, they should be in a position to get into multiple career options. So, keeping that in mind, we have introduced this lecture series, and we have put a few questions to ourselves before we introduce this lecture series. And one or two questions I will just inform you. In the lecture one, Professor Anishu Rehman, he gave a very pertinent question to us. What is comparative literature, and how does it differ from world literature? And does it actually differ? If yes, what are the points? If not, then how do you create an amalgamation between comparative literature and world literature? That was one question. And then we also have been thinking about the evolution of comparative literature as a discipline, which I already told you. And then what is meant by world literature according to Goethe and other such scholars who have contributed substantially to comparative literature. And then how does comparative literature deal with issues of the canon formation? Now, what exactly is canon? And what is Beard canon? And comparative literature through translation studies, does it actually contribute to any particular canon? If yes, how? If not, then are we in a position to frame and to create and to introduce a new canon by breaking the existing canons? That is one question that we have been asking ourselves during this period of research of last 4 months. And then what is the role of translation in comparative world literature is one thing which is very, very important for us, because we have a department of translation studies, and Dr. Paromita is a teacher from translation studies and Hindi, and you can see that she is multilingual. And many of our teachers are very efficient and they're multilingual, and they are contributing research to interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and multidisciplinary studies. They are not intradisciplinary. And then how do the national literatures relate to world literature? Now, what about national literatures? The literatures of the 22 languages plus English, the official languages, or also the literatures of orality, folk literature, tribal literature, are they a part of our national literatures? If yes, then how do they contribute to the comparative world literature as a specific canon? That is one pertinent question, and a couple of speakers before you, they have spoken on comparative literature and folklore and tribal studies, and those are already in our YouTube series. Whenever you are free, I would request take a look at those so that you will know where you stand and where you have contributed. And then another question that we ask ourselves is define the concept of literary universals and literary particular ideas. And then, what is the politics of inclusion and exclusion in world literature? Who should be included? Who should be excluded? Who are the ideas or ideologies or texts that should be included in comparative world literature, and who should not be included, if at all? Should we exclude somebody? That is the question. Because our lecture series, Comparative World Literature lecture series from Hindu University, is all about inclusivity and flexibility. With that introduction in my mind, and with that idea in my mind about inclusivity and flexibility, I am once again very privileged and proud to invite two speakers today who have been actually inclusive and flexible in their own rights. They have been writing, contributing creative writing, which is inclusive and flexible. They have been thinking about the marginal literatures, the people who are the subalterns, people who are marginalized groups, and they have been including them in literature. They have created, both of them have created smiles in the lips of many. And I feel privileged once again to invite two of my very, very dear persons and scholars and my mentors as the speakers today. Thank you and namaskar and welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I'm very excited to introduce a very knowledgeable author, Miss Satbir Chadha, our first speaker. Miss Satbir Chadha is the acclaimed author of For God Loves Foolish People, a novel that earned her the prestigious Revell International Prize. Her second novel, Betrayed, Tale of Rock Surgeon, is a gripping medical thriller. Her work has been featured in over 40 national and international anthologies, including Q by the Pangasinan Historical and Cultural Commission in the Philippines, Vibrant Voices, and the Recent Silver Years by Sahitya Academy Delhi. She has also authored four solo poetry collections: Breeze, Glass Doors, The Last Lamp, and I Want to Go to Haldwani, and other poems. Her latest book is the novel Hills and Lakes, published by Publisher from Kolkata. She has been honored with the Literature Award by Authors Press for her significant contributions to literature. As the founder of the NISSIM International Prize for Literature, she encouraged emerging writers of English prose and poetry, which is, I must say, which is really a fantastic, fantastic thing for the newcomer who are in the field of the writing. Currently, she resides in Delhi with her beautiful family. And now, I would like to request Ms. Satbir Chadha ma'am for her very enlightening speech.
Thank you, Dr. Paramita. Thank you, Dr. Nandini. I'm so honored and overwhelmed by your kindness, your beautiful, loving introduction. It's much more than I could take. And thank you so much for the honor you have given me by inviting me here today. Very good morning to you, Vice Chancellor Professor Nandini Sahu, Dr. Paramita Das, scholars, academicians, students, faculty, and administration of Hindi University. And thank you, dear, for the lovely introduction. I will add a bit. I'm impressed by what Dr. Nandini said about inclusivity. For me, there should be no exclusivity. Everybody is has a right to be included, and it's for the readers and the discerning audience to decide how much merit each one deserves. And also, I too bank a lot. I think writers and of the future should bank a lot on the folklore and folk literature, which has been our legacies for years. And though the new trend is to reinvent it and put it in the modern pathos, I still prefer that it be recognized and addressed and understood as it was, because issues which were then relevant are relevant still now, only in a different way. That's my perspective, and thank you very much, Dr. Nandini, for this. And I thank you for the invitation to speak here today and share some thoughts. In all humility, I am overawed by the lectures done before by the worthy scholars and authors. I congratulate them all, and I congratulate you, Ma'am Nandini, for spearheading this huge exercise of communication and sharing, which is very important in any society. I begin by talking about this book, Fire on the Ganges, a remarkable book published in 2023 by Fourth Estate and written by Radha Iyengar. This here is a deeply authentic account of the Dome community of Banaras, who alone have the license to light the corpses brought here to the several ghats of Banaras, a place where life and death coexist in a most unimaginable way. I quote from the introduction: the Domes are a Dalit subcaste in Banaras, designated by tradition to perform the Hindu rite of cremation. They have ownership of the sacred fire, without which it is believed the Hindu soul will not achieve moksha or liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. Despite this, the community is condemned to the lowest order in the hierarchy, and its members treated as untouchables. Radhika chronicles the everyday realities of the Domes, plunging into their historical past, created by myths and realities of gods and their territories. She spent 8 years in this research and lived and observed firsthand, also with conversations and interviews with some characters whose confidence she had gained. The abject poverty, sordid dwellings, lack of amenities, lack of education defies imagination. Yet they cling to their traditions and their beliefs and guard their patriarchal and discriminatory practices quite fiercely. With their ash strewn limbs and liquor laden breath, they sleep and awake to death every day, plowing through the snow on the grounds and the ghats and the sludge of the river, which they wade through, trying to sift tiny molecules of some precious metals, which are added to the dead person's bones when they are interred in the river. The author discovers and tenderly talks of touching love stories, shy romances budding despite the surroundings. Sadly, caste and subcaste, family and fate are the chief denominator. The book narrows its lens on a few spirited characters from the community. Through their tales of struggle and survival, loss and ambition, betrayal and love, the book tells of, at times, heartbreaking, at times, exhilarating story of a people struggling to find a place beyond that accorded to them by ancient tradition. Kudos to Radha Iyengar's journalistic and wide research and the superb fictionalized account of these people and their lives and surroundings. Immensely immaculate writing skills and thought provoking narrative. This is a book that stays with the reader. Fire in the Ganges. Further on, in recent years, we have seen a surge in group publications as in anthologies. Brigadier Pranadhar Gaur, a highly decorated army officer, along with Dr. Rupali Sarkar Gaur and co-editors Dr. Pragya Bajpai and Niharika Chibbarjo, compiled and curated a noteworthy and I feel essential anthology with contribution from defense services personnel or their families from across the world, sharing stories and experiences and historical information through the book. The collection is titled The Force is With Us, an international anthology celebrating the armed forces. It is a collection of writings by active duty soldiers, women and men, veterans, and their kith and kin. It is bilingual, containing voices both in Hindi and English, and the content is both in prose and in verse. Soldiers are great storytellers. They are authentic witnesses to the devastation and mayhem of armed conflicts. Their voices are their lived experience. They are the last ones to wish for war. And here they share their concerns while the world continues to see wars from whence many more stories will come. Every soldier everywhere has a story to tell, an experience to share. And this book gives each one a platform and space to share it. Finally, for not all can write and publish books, and they find representation here. There are 71 contributors with a brilliant foreword by Lieutenant General Anil Kumar Bhatt, Director General, Indian Space Association, who says, soldiering and war elicit a multitude of emotions from us human beings: grief, fear, pride, sorrow, and sprinklings of happiness, belonging, and lasting friendships. Brigadier Gaur, in his introduction, says, I quote, quite starkly, a grim picture begins to emerge through the narratives depicting post traumatic stress disorder, the struggle and sorrows of women and children, of the martyred soldier, even through the total silence about military service. Silence speaks volumes, signs of torture and interrogation, missing toes, an artificial eye that can be pulled out and rolled around, the uncle who stares vacantly, his mind left elsewhere, shell shock, a gift of war. The soldier injured or disabled in battle or during training brings to his life grit and courage of an exemplary kind. Indian poets and authors, Major D.P. Singh, Lieutenant Colonel D.D. Goyal, and Captain Naveen Gulia, share their experiences with us in this book. They speak of strength and moving on unafraid, giving to society and continuing to be a shining source of inspiration. We also see in some poems and paragraphs an indifferent officialdom and a cruel civil society. And may I tell you, Colonel D.D. Goel is a 1965 war veteran, and in his 90s, a roaring poet. I have met him personally too. We see hurt, pain, and bitterness in their writing. Poems that tell us graphic stories, poems situated in urban and rural milieu, the martyred spouse warrior dead, a stark graphic narrative or rural India. There is authentic anger and angst at the plight. Sorry, again. There is authentic anger and angst at the plight and indifference to missing prisoners of war, graying families waiting forever. When you light a lamp, light one for the soldier who has not returned home, whispered one poet. There are plaintive tales of young women in the throes of widowhood, the soldier's widowed spouse, and the soldier himself who never returned home. Tributes to fathers and grandfathers and siblings in uniform give us a deep understanding of military life from the perspectives of families. We visit the Garhwal Hills and trek up a mountain to the village home of a soldier. The longing for one's faraway home and the sense of dislocation are universal. Yet experiences of music, Maharajas, recitals, and Flagstaff houses also find a record in the poetry here. There are odes to heroic soldiers, fathers, uncles, brothers, grandfathers, and wives. The poems invoke stoic mothers and grandmothers who waited forever and then moved on to bring up the children left behind. Teaching the tired, sleepy cadet is a subject tinged with pathos and humor. And the stereotype busting martyred female soldier makes a first time appearance in this anthology. Death stalks the stories of soldiers. Thus, we see a heightened meaning and gratitude that must be brought to life. There are other constants, tributes to their relentless companions, their boots and berets and her haircuts bring a smile to our faces. A female soldier poet calls herself hawk-eyed and eagle-winged, fearless in forests and mountains, fulfilling their duty. Retirement and superannuation find their way into the poetry too. It is always a sad day when the soldier must take off his uniform, never to wear it again. The universal experience of moving to a new location every few years is recounted in these pages. Gripping narratives of the Indo Pakistan War and the legendary bravery of the Gorkha soldier find mention in poetry and prose. There are also love poems, love for one's land, love for a beloved, and love for the land where one's father, grandfather, spouse, or sibling was deployed or even laid to rest. That is the marvel of this book, and it's a powerful and important anthology which has found representation for uh, the personnel from all over the world, and we wish more people would get to see it. Now, coming down to some poetry, we all who love poetry love the sonnets form and enjoy reading them. I talk about the anthology brought out by the literary group The Significant League under the leadership of Dr. Ampat Koshli, and this is the Let me show it to you. The Roseate Sonnet Anthology. The Roseate Sonnet is a form of sonnet created by Dr. Koshi A.V. in December 2012, and he also wrote the first one. It is a South Indian variation on the Italian or Petrarchal or English version of the same, so that finds Indian regional representation in that poetry form. Koshi says the rules are as follows. The sonnet must have two quatrains first, followed by a couplet that can be a volta, then followed by the last quatrain that starts the first line with R, the second with O, the third with S, and the last with E to form an acrostic that reads Rose. The form has no constraints like rhyme or meter or blank verse and no fixed syllabic count. It is a wonderful form as it keeps the expression concise while giving it a wide expanse at the same time. The zoes bringing in an element of chaos, whether love, beauty, religiosity, spirituality, divinity, mysticism, sexuality, sensuality, or anything else as the subject matter of the sonnet. The Roseate Sonnet Anthology has sonnets by 82 poets across the world, with a varied idiom and theme, the most notable being 30 sonnets by Dr. Koshi, written to his muse, each one with a new sensitivity, a new invocation to his muse, with various attributes and sensuality, liberty and freedom, profound to the extreme of being divine, a world of fantasy, surreal vistas, and humanity in 14 lines. Extraordinary also is the contribution by Dr. Santosh Bakaya, who has written a long narrative in 50 sonnets titled You Heard the Scream, Didn't You? Which also is a refrain in each sonnet. It is a highly touching, humane story continuing over 50 poems, and yet each sonnet by itself is a complete expression, a complete poem. Together, they narrate a saga of depravity and of human apathy. It's marvelous. It's a marvelous feat to have this narrative being done in this precise form of the Roseate Sonnet, and the whole anthology is a mark of a beautiful exercise. Now, surprising you, I come to the topic of grief, which I define as a balancing emotion and one that is most lasting. Grief, grace. This is the title of this book written by Dr. Neena Verma, a grief therapist. This mention of grief is necessary because it is rarely addressed in literature in the right way. It is used as a tearjerker or invoking sympathy, even mercy. Grief should be used for us to reinvent, to grow, and to really embrace the world better. Loss, death, and bereavement are inevitable to human life. Equally true is a human capacity to grow strength in the garden of sorrow and seek the path of deep growth, transformation, and grace in the midst of grief and pain. Neena Verma, an expert companion, counselor, and educator, and a bereaved mother herself, offers an in depth an engaging book that guides the way to transform grief journey into growth and grace, a pilgrimage. It is an important book because people go under the early bed of grief and never come out and end up uh, con- growing different illnesses and psychotic diseases which they cannot shed. So it's important to learn to understand and deal with grief. The book contains actual stories and experiences that the author saw with her lived experience and interaction with people. First hand stories that startle you and then offer important insights. The book has three parts: The Maze of Grief, Mystique of Grief, and Marvel of Grace. A path setting growth mandala framework shows an evocative and powerful way to affirm grief, adapt to the emergent reality with resilience, restore well being, transform, and re emerge with meaning and grace. She talks of different types of grief highlighted by real life incidents and real characters dealing with their trauma. Leading you through the path of resilience, she takes you to compassion. There is no rest for the human mind without compassion. Ultimately, reaching the pinnacle of forgiveness, where one can ultimately find relief. Though to one's grief, there is never an end. It is a scholarly, research based scientific study, but not like a textbook for a therapist. It's a book for the layman reader to understand and deal with grief. The steps and ladders through the power of human mind, written in such an engaging style, and the profound experiences so well expressed that they do not leave you. I share with you in the book there is the story of Savi, married at 19, has four children, and an alcoholic husband. Her firstborn is a pillar of strength and support. The second and fourth children, mediocre students, but loving and caring, while the third is wayward from childhood itself. She struggles to bring up her children, to get her third son through rehab, but loses him to cirrhosis of the liver at the young age of 20 due to his alcoholism. She is shattered. Barely does she come to terms with it, the reasons and logic giving her solace that her eldest son is unreasonably and illogically murdered for being in love and trying to marry a girl outside his caste. This tragedy just crushes her. Over time, with the support of her two children, she somehow moves on and trains to be a counselor at a rehab, even helping some affected people out of their alcoholism. A policeman investigating her son's murder asks her, how can she be civil and polite to the murderer's family? And she says, I forgave them. I forgave them. He says, how can you forgive them? And she says, I forgave them because the burden of hate and bitterness was too heavy to carry. She found an anchor in healing, not in hating. So, this is about what I planned to talk about today. And thank you very much, friends, for listening patiently to a long and varied discourse. And thank you once again for having me among you all. Blessings to you all for your good health, peace, and happiness. It was wonderful being among you and talking to all of you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes. Now, I would request Professor Nandini Sahu ma'am for her very valuable remarks.
Yes, Paramita. Thank you, Paramita. Satbir,
Ma'am, you are not audible, ma'am. Ma'am,
can you hear me? Am I audible now?
bit
Is
higher,
it
ma'am. Ma'am,
is
it's not clear. It's not clear yet.
okay? Is it clear now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Satbir, Chadha, madam, you had a very important research paper you presented, as expected, definitely. You talked about grief and compassion as grace and balancing acts in any literature, which was something that is actually my takeaway. You quoted multiple texts and anthologies in Indian literature scenario now, starting with Radha Iyengar's journalistic research, or you talked about many essential anthologies in contemporary India and their historical positions. I have, in fact, multiple views about those. Sometimes the anthologies are very important. They have a theme, they have a technique, they have a point of view, and they are truly representatives of some culture, some language, some literature. But in some cases, the anthologies may not be, like both of you will agree with me. In some cases, the anthologies may not be very inclusive. They may fail to include everyone, all the important voices. But
Perhaps
we
we can
cannot
find
do without anthologies. You look at the history of world literatures, where you see that important poets, important writers were anthologized, and those who were
they
not
were
published posthumously. But whatever may be the matter, but the anthologies and the publications, one has to keep in touch with whatever is happening in contemporary India in our Bhasha literatures. We are a country where we have a very pluralistic culture, multilingual culture. Uh, we have to look at the anthologies from other Bhasha literatures as well. And for that, we need deep research. This is what I have been telling my faculty members and my scholars and the students that uh, sometimes we do Malayalam literature, we say this is Indian literature. We do Odia literature, we call it Indian literature. Or maybe we do Bengali literature and we name it as Indian literature is such a big and such an inclusive term that it has to include all our translations and Bhasha literatures, which you already pointed out. And then you also talked about voices of authors in comparative literature pedagogy. Voices are very important. The points of view, play within a play, a story within a story, plot within a plot, and poetic voices, voices of writers of fiction. You emphasize on voices, and that is very, very important. So when we design our syllabus of the MA programs in comparative world literature, we will certainly keep it in mind that we have to include probably a couple of blocks or chapters where you do not talk about texts as texts, but texts as representational voices. So this is what I thought when you were speaking. And from your lecture, couple of things that I assumed or I understood, please correct me if I'm wrong. You talked about the study of literature across linguistic, cultural, national, and disciplinary boundaries. And then you hinted at the moves beyond single language and national traditions to explore cross cultural relationships. And then you also hinted at comparison of texts and comparative critical frameworks. And then somehow I understood intertextuality, cultural translation, hybridity, dialogue between literatures. Then you thought about nation, language, identity, and our relationships between texts and contexts, which were really important, but in a very simple manner, in a rather more approachable manner. You gave such important pedagogical points to our scholars and students. We shall always be grateful to you for this very, very important lecture. It is being recorded and the YouTube will be available to you very soon. Maybe we will take some questions for you, madam, after. Santosh madam has completed her lecture. Now I pass it on to Dr. Paromita to go to the next lecture. But before that, once again, thank you very much for this important lecture, for this very serious preparation. We thoroughly enjoyed your talk. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I'm really pleased to introduce our next speaker, a very notable author, Dr. Santosh Bakaya, ma'am. Dr. Santosh Bakaya is a joint director of higher education for the Rajasthan government. A multifaceted writer, she is a poet, essayist, novelist, and creative writer mentor. As a TEDx speaker, her talk on the myth of writer's block has resonated deeply within creative writing circles. Dr. Bakaya pens two highly popular columns, Trigger, That Creative Spark in Kashmir Pen, and Morning Meanderings in Learning and Creativity.com. With a prolific body of work spanning 30 books across various genres, her notable works include the poetic biography Ballad of Bapu on Mahatma Gandhi and Only in Darkness Can You See the Stars, a biography of Martin Luther King Jr., both of which have received international acclaim. Her latest book, Din About Din About Chins has garnered significant critical praise. Now, without any delay, I would like to request Dr. Santosh Bakaya ma'am for her very eloquent speech. Ma'am, please.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Paromita. Can you hear me?
Yes,
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 ma'am,
we can
you're
hear
audible.
you. So
Yeah.
before
Okay.
she starts,
Okay.
I must tell you, Paramita, that every morning we wake up with her morning memory. And
So cute.
And she didn't,
yes,
Nandini
I've read and
Sahuji,
reviewed
she
her.
didn't, she didn't add that people like Satbir Chadha ji call me the Mad Hatter.
I,
Okay, a very, very bright and scintillating morning to all the literary luminaries here. Thank you, Paramita. And what an absolute honor and joy it is to be a part of this webinar, Contemporary World Literature, excellently curated by Dr. Nandini Sahu, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Hindi University, and the Registrar of Hindi University, Dr. Paramita Das. It's very nice to be here with the eminent scholars and keen students. Yes, voices are very important. Inclusivity is very, very important. And of course, it's also very wonderful to be here with Sadhbir Chadda. And it was intellectually stimulating listening to whatever she had to say about the anthologies and grief. So thank you, Sadhbir ji. Thank you so much. And before I move forward, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Nandini Sahu on her incredible work as the founder, vice chancellor of Hindu University. It is inspiring, very, very inspiring to see her work all the time. I wonder whether she really sleeps at all. Do you? I don't think she sleeps. I also often don't sleep. So, anyway, so, comparative world literature is a vast interdisciplinary field exploring and comparing literary works across national, linguistic, cultural boundaries from different periods, drawing upon various fields history, philosophy, sociology, and cultural studies to analyze literary works. And I'm not going to dwell into that, but I'll straight away skip to two books which I want to talk about. And I was very, very impressed by those two books. I had a tough time, trying to decide what to speak on. But then I chose two books I had read some time back. Both of them are in the news. One is Eden Abandoned, The Story of Lilith by Shiny Anthony, Hatchet India 2024. Recently, I had the honor of being on the jury of the Wise Owl Awards, and I happened to read 29 enriching books. 29 books, big fat books, small books also. And the first book that I picked up, the first book that I picked up was this sleek book, very, very sleek book of 127 pages, Eden Abandoned, The Story of Lilith by Shiny Anthony. You know why I picked it up? I thought it is pretty small, so I would be able to finish it in a jiffy, but no, I was sadly mistaken. This deceptively small book had to be read and reread and reread and reread many times, leaving me with 101 pulsating thoughts in my head. which is always churning and cheering. Anyway, so this book won the first prize for fiction in the Wise Owl Awards. Honestly speaking, I did not know much about Lilith, but the book was an eye opener. Some passages beguiled me, some shocked me, and some scared me. Intensely thought provoking, the book is a withering attack on centennial patriarchy and gender discrimination. What appealed to me was the way her pen dances to her tunes, the way she plays with words, the way she describes nature in lyrical words. Okay, let me tell you a little about Shiny Antonin. I met her in Chandigarh recently during the award function, and she writes with a dark, incisive humor. She won a Commonwealth Broadcasting Association Story Writing Prize in 2001 for Somewhere in Gujarat, a translated version of which appeared in the Malayalam Manorama on October 18, 2001. This is her first book of short stories. She worked in Kochi, Delhi, Bangalore, and Mumbai with the Indian Skeptic, Midday, the Economic Times, and the Financial Express. So, who was Lilith? Lilith was Adam's first wife in the Garden of Eden. They lived peacefully under God's eyes till she refused to conform and submit to Adam's demands. Now she gains wings and leaves Eden. The Department of Sins votes for her ouster from Eden. Now, Adam replaces her with Eve, who is meek, timid, and subservient. And Lilith was demanding, short tempered, and unnatural in her sexual desires. Adam complains to God. In this retelling of Bible stories, Lilith comes across as a very, very strong feminine character. The wild and untamable Lilith, the love of Adam's life, the only woman for the only man on earth, is now cast out of Eden and she roams the earth, mastering the dark arts. She is now the Lilith, night monster, seductress of demons, and child killer. Lilith begone, sing monsters, sing their mothers to protect their sleeping babies. Lilith, the temptress. Lilith now goes on a rampage to discover all that she is and all that she could be, beyond Adam, beyond Eden, and beyond God. As the first woman created from clay, Lilith's defiance led to the creation of Eve, who was meant to be meek and submissive. While roaming around, she teaches Adam and Eve. She watches Adam and Eve from a distance and is amused. And I'll just read from page 102, where she says that even in their mental torpor, they had divided their stride into long and short. Adam walking ahead and Eve trailing behind, and she guiltily walking slowly with all the paraphernalia of secondhood. Secondhood. Point to be noted: paraphernalia of secondhood. And another line which was very appealing. She says, "The world belongs to them. Good men, bad men, every man, all men." Slightly behind them, their smiles stiff, stand the good women. The bad women are not even part of the ecosystem. Page 104. In this riveting take on female rage, Shiny Anthony has created a fiery woman born from the ashes of her former self, exuberant, unapologetic, and unrestrained. Lilith shines, soars, and persists, a historic villainess, a modern day heroine. And let me tell you that she continues to be a fascinating source material in fantasy, culture, literature, occult horror, and erotica. And many, many books have been written on Lilith from the male perspective also. Lilith, is born with a manufacturing defect. She's born with a manufacturing defect, her inability to nod. She doesn't nod. She's not submissive. So, in conformity with the narrative of male superiority and female inferiority, Lilith was erased from all scriptures and evidence of her existence. Shiny Anthony's Eden Abandoned rewrites Lilith's story, depicting her transformation from passive feminine rage to an active monster. With a deft and incisive pen, she navigates Lilith's fall into madness. Her beautiful lyrical prose is intriguing and sprinkled with modern slang and humor. And let me tell you that a lot of research has gone into retelling the story in just 127 books. She seems to have written the book in a sort of a trance. This is what I told her in Chandigarh. And I what I loved about the book was the riveting lyrical prose with the profusion of nature. And if you'll allow me, I'll quote a few lines from the book. The way she talks about nature, it was a peacock of a tree. It was a peacock of a tree, a veritable jungle of branches and apples and heartwood and canopies, with long muscular arms in full sleeves of frond and fern. It stole into your line of vision just by standing still and breathing. This is on page 91. And then another paragraph which appealed to me very much, and I narrated this. I read this out in Chandigarh. It is on page 93. She talks about the dew on the apples. The dew on the apples, the sun on the apples, the breeze gently rocking the apples, apples in the moonlight, apples awash in the rain, dancing on the tree, little geishas of absolute seduction. Look at these words. Little geishas of absolute seduction in tight red kimonos ready to be ripped, and the overripe apples that fell to the ground oozing pulp. This cloying wait to be consumed, to be savored, to burst the magic on tongue and teeth. Beautiful lines. These are beautiful lines. So let me add here that there has been no dearth of feminist movements, but women we find are still struggling. The modern twist in the narrative resonates with contemporary female readers, shedding light on rampant inequalities and injustice. Through Lilith's voice, the author makes the readers think deeply about societal imbalances, about gender injustice. In just 127 pages, it explores a wide range of topics from marriage to love to childbirth, shedding light on the struggles faced by strong willed women. Society conspires against these women, forcing them to live on the fringes, though those who dare to support them are punished. So you see, she takes us on a journey brimming with philosophical insights that shake the reader with their modern relevance, and by Lilith's tale of love, rage, and transformation. This book, this small book of 127 pages, is a must read for those seeking fresh perspectives on gender dynamics and societal norms. Second, not secondary, is the new motto. We cannot ignore the modern ring that the story has. It has a unique structure, only 13 chapters. The cover art is beautiful. Lilith, has a mind of her own. She defies the status quo strongly and passionately portrays feminine rage brewing beneath the surface. The words you find, they just spring off the book, leaving a lasting impact and poking our feminist sensibilities. Okay, this I think is a necessary read because she takes us on a journey filled with philosophical insights and modern relevance. And I strongly feel that this book should be prescribed in gender studies. And before I finish talking about this book, let me quote a few lines from the last pages, where she says that people make fun, people lampoon women who are alone. She says that much is made of my loneliness. Much is made of my loneliness, my single status, my childlessness, me wandering like a minstrel holding a tambourine. And I see you hold hands in the town square, clink wine glasses in pre-booked family resorts. You miss me in your bed when all you have is a wife. Not every story is about Adam and Eve, man and woman yoked together, fruitful and multiplying, couples, pairs, duos, twosomes. There is also a Lilith. There is also a Lilith, a woman who is solitary, who is very snug and comfortable in her lonely splendor. So this is about this book, which I really enjoy, and it is multi-layered. You have to read between the lines. It has many, many nuances, and let me tell you that I must have read this book 10 times to get hold of those nuances. So in the next book that I'm going to talk of is, I'm still reading it though. It is Banu Mushtaq's Heart Lamp, Selected Stories translated by Deepa Bhatti. And at the very outset, let me tell you that I strongly feel that the translator should be given as much importance as the original writer. So whenever we talk about Heart Lamp, Banu Mushtaq comes to mind. But the translator Deepa Bhatti brought the book to the global stage. So this is very, very important for me. And we should take Banu Mushtaq's name along with Deepa Bhatt's name. This is what I feel. So let me begin. What you have written is biased. What you have written is biased, said a man in a condescending tone to Banu Mushtaq, writer, journalist, and lawyer. She replied, yes, bias is necessary. Taking a stand is necessary. I told them that what they couldn't learn in their fancy writing schools, I taught them with my stories that taking a stand matters. Taking a stand matters. This happened on May 28th, 2025, when Banu Mushtaq narrated this anecdote to a packed audience gathered to celebrate her just hours after she had landed in the city from London on Wednesday, May 28th. On June 5th in Bengaluru, she talked of linguistic pride and cultural confidence and urged the students not to feel inferior due to their lack of fluency in English. And this is also what I tell my students. They say, Madam Angrezi nahi aati. I tell them, first learn Hindi and then you talk of English. English is a foreign language and you can pick it up later. So Hindi is important, other languages are important, the regional languages are important, English can come later. So she says, my mother tongue is Urdu. My mother tongue is Urdu and I studied in Kannada medium school. I never allowed my limited English to create a sense of inferiority. Language is identity. We must nurture our roots and feel empowered in the language we are most comfortable with. She says that she was in class fourth when her family moved to Hassan and the local school refused to admit her. They said, how can we teach Kannada to a Muslim girl? So they admitted her only into first grade on one condition, that she learned to write and write Kannada within 6 months. Not only did she do it, she returned to fourth grade in half a year. And she says that I'm still the same Banu. All I wanted was for my stories to be read in English. That was my only dream. I didn't even know what the Booker Prize was. When those people rang her up, she said, I was sort of shocked. I did not know what the Booker Prize was. My daughters told me what the Booker is. So she had a simple wish to have her work translated. So it was finally realized. Translator and writer Deepa Bhashti entered one of the 12 stories meant for a translated anthology for a competition, and the story won. And the rest is history. The story was brought into the world as Heart Lamp, selected stories, which was submitted for the Booker Prize without her knowledge. She just said thank you when she was told that her book had been longlisted because she didn't know what the Booker was. I had no idea what it meant. Writer Banu Mushtaq and translator Deepa Bhattacharya winning this year's International Booker Prize for their short story collection is indeed a spectacular moment for Karnataka, the Kannada language, and India's regional voices. She created history as the first author writing in Kannada to win the International Booker Prize for her short story anthology. But had Deepa Bhattacharya not translated it from the original Hasina, Mattu, Itara, Kathegu, Hasina, and other stories, it would have gone unnoticed. The chair of judges, Max Porter, described it as a beautiful, busy, and life affirming, and something genuinely new for English readers, a radical translation. With these 12 stories chosen from around 50, written over 3 decades, Banu brings the lives of Muslim and Dalit women into the spotlight. These women cleverly maneuver a world that treats them as footnotes. These stories of resilience and quiet revolt are sprinkled with wit and humor. And the translation has brought her profound voice to the global stage. And we come across a variety of characters here in this book of 12 stories, spunky children and spunkier grannies, Maulvis, cruel husbands and brothers, women who are not passive recipients of brutality, but they challenge the entrenched hypocrisy with a biting, searing clarity. The stories deal with issues of gender, faith, family, and how they influence Muslim women in South India. I really loved the rich colloquial style. It really appealed to me. It was a conversational style. And through the writings, through the stories, we get a peek into the family dynamics from several female perspectives. In her acceptance speech for the International Booker Prize, Banu Mushtaq says, she points out the importance of the local and the largeness of what we are quick to label small. She says, If I may borrow a phrase from my own culture, the moment feels like 1,000 fireflies lighting up a single sky, brief, brilliant, and utterly collective. To even stand among these extraordinary finalists is an honor I'll never forget. And I accept this great honor not as an individual, but as a voice raised in chorus with so many others. She says, I'm happy for the entire world, which is full of diversity and inclusiveness. I'm happy for myself and my translator, Deepa Bhashti. This is more than a personal achievement. It is an affirmation that we as individuals and as a global community can thrive when we embrace diversity, celebrate our differences, and uplift one another. Together, we create a world where every voice is heard, every story matters, and every person belongs. This story, this book is my love letter to the idea that no story is local. That a tale born, that a tale born under a banyan tree in my village can cast shadows as far as the stage tonight. To every reader who journeyed with me, you have made my Kannada language a shared home. It is a language of resilience. To inherit, to write in Kannada is to inherit a legacy of cosmic wonder and earthly wisdom. And the book is born from the belief that no story is ever small, that in the tapestry of human experience, every thread holds the weight of the whole. The world, in a world that often tries to divide us, literature remains one of the last sacred spaces where we can live inside each other's minds, if only for a few pages. And both these books have many things in common. And Ethan Abandoned focuses on the biblical story of Lilith and her rebellion. Heartlamp examines the experiences of women in contemporary society. Both talk of female characters who challenge established power structures and patriarchal norms. Lilith in Eden Abandoned refuses to be submissive to Adam and God. The women in Heartlamp navigate social pressures and religious constraints. Both are a stinging indictment of patriarchal system and how they impact women's lives. So this too is Bandia, a quiet rebellion born out of lived experiences. There are themes of power and subordination and focus on women's experience. But let me add here that Shiny Anthony, has done a lot of research for this book of 27 pages, 127 pages. But Mushtaq's stories have been written from life's experiences. We come across indignant husbands, scarred women, abandoned by husbands for younger women, kids fighting over food, and social apathy and indifference. There are subtle nuances and many layers. Although about the Muslim women of Karnataka, they speak for all marginalized women. And there are interesting stories, and the stone slabs for Shaista Mahal, there is red lungi. And if I have time, I want to refer to the story, Black Cobras. Let me refer to one story which intrigued me very much, and it brought a smile to my lips. Black Cobras. This is the story, the essence of all stories put together: the entitlement of men, the oppressive village structure, and the unleashing of the vindictive anger of women united for a common cause. There's this lady, Ashraf, whose husband leaves her and her three daughters for a younger woman. And she seeks the help of the village and religious custodian, but she's ignored and abused. In an audacious act of collective rage, the women throw a pebble supposedly towards a dog, but actually at this man, this village and religious custodian. And they cry out in one voice, nothing will come your way. May black cobras coil themselves around you. So this is just a small victory, but what a humiliating thing for that man. And so there are many stories, and all these stories will appeal to you. And let me conclude in the words of Banu Mushtaq from her acceptance speech. Tonight is not an end point. Tonight is not an end point. It's a torch passed. May it light the way for more stories from unheard corners. Unheard corners. We want more stories from unheard corners, more translations that defy borders, and more voices that remind us the universe fits inside every eye. Thank you so much. And I wanted to go on and on because the stories are very, very intriguing and appealing, but there are time constraints. So thank you very much for letting me have my say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an illustrious and knowledgeable speech. Now, I would request Professor Nandini Sahu, ma'am, for her very significant remarks.
Uh, Thank you, Paramita. Well, nothing less is expected from Santosh ma'am. I must say she is animated, she is enthusiastic, she is full of ideas, and her research is very, very original and unique. So that's how we all admire her. You emphasized translation studies, and we so agree with you, madam, because uh, in a country like India, as I already said during the previous lecture, that translation is the key. Without translation studies, perhaps the world cannot communicate with each other. And the books that you have taken, a significant book, Shiny Anthony, I should congratulate her because you have brought her to a platform like this. And then Banu Mustak, yes, I read her. The translator Deepa Basti, she has significantly contributed. Without the translation, perhaps the book couldn't have come where it is today. So once again, we are very happy that she translated and did a very important and a very original translation, and she maintained the tone and the tenure of the writer. She understood the spirit of the writer, because translation is tricky. It's not everybody's cup of tea to be a good translator. Very few people can actually translate with the spirit and the culture of the given language, the original language. That's why we say that translation is power. Translation brings home the culture. One culture is taken to another culture through the translator, and this is indeed an important responsibility about which you emphasized today. And you took out some very pertinent issues, madam, like protest literature. These writers, their gender discourses, and feminist movements. Then marginal literatures you talked about, then life experiences of these writers, how uh, without being too subjective, in a very objective manner, they have taken out the life experiences that they had through their creative writing, and what else can be expected from good literature rather than this. And you told a lot about the politics of translation and language as identity. I always tell that language is our behavior. The way we use our language actually talks a lot about our culture, our readings, our empathy, our compassion, and whole lot of things. And you pointed out all those things. So my takeaway from your lecture to the Hindi University syllabus, or to Hindi University, you know, for the research, I have jotted down a few things when you were talking. I was actually writing, you might have noticed. So I have taken note from both of you, of course. I always do that. So you told me comparative literature is inseparable from translation. Yes, all comparison across languages depends on acts of translation, whether it is acknowledged or whether it is invisible. But translation is not a very neutral act. It involves choices of power, visibility, and interpretation. Because I think Deepa Basti did interpretation rather than direct translation. And then politics of translations, it shapes what gets compared. Sometimes if you compare the original text and the translated text, there can be a lot of translatable and untranslatable phrases which the translator may present as if it were his or her original writing. And then global literary circles, if they privilege certain languages like English and French, rendering other marginal and invisible languages. And you somehow hinted at that no language should be marginalized when it comes to comparative world literature. Comparative literature risks reproducing new colonial hierarchies unless it critiques its own transnational foundations. And this is something which was inherent in your lecture, because what you explained to us is language is not just a medium, but language is identity. We so agree with you when you say that language is an identity. Then you hinted at the colonial legacies that shape the linguistic comparisons. I found that in your lecture. Then you thought about the illusion of transparent world literatures. There are so many transparent world literatures which are illusory for us. And you try to take us to those illusions where we can break those boundaries and then we can create a new pedagogy for our upcoming researchers and students. And yes, translation is a cultural politics. I do agree with you. And dominance of English, like you said, we should learn our bhasha literatures and languages first, then we can always go to English. We definitely agree with you that dominance of English as a comparative medium may be thought about. We may rethink about that, though we are English teachers, but we have to rethink because we are Indians with so many important languages in our country. Then you hinted at loss of languages and the epistemic violence in language scenario. Then ethics of fidelity as cultural transformation. Then the need of epistemic pluralism as something that you talked about. And then so many suggestions you have given, and we have recorded everything. We are going to take out a volume of all the lectures that you people are delivering. Maybe within 15 days or so, I will get back to all the speakers of this important and interesting lecture series to contribute a research paper on comparative world literatures, interpreting the texts that they have already spoken about, theorizing them, writing critically, and then I will give everyone 6 months time to contribute. Probably that is going to be another significant contribution which we can use at a later stage as a part of our syllabus in some comparative MA programs. Once again, I must thank both the speakers today, two very fascinating people delivering two very fascinating lectures with a lot of critical points and debates that you have given us as the food for thought in future. Thanks a lot, and of course, many
Thank you.
congratulations to Paramita for successfully coordinating it.
Thank you.
Paramita is, she is a teacher of the Hindi department and translation studies department, and she is not our registrar, and she is the coordinator, the convener of this lecture series, and she is doing it with a lot of enthusiasm. She is not the registrar; she is the faculty member. Yes, Paramita.
Barometer slight correction. In my bio, I was the former joint director higher education. Right now, I'm
Okay.
only a writer.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Sure, ma'am. I'll note it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification.
Thank you.
And now, actually, due to paucity of time, we will be able to take only one question. If anyone has any, you may ask. Okay, or you may send it to our email address, which I have shared in the chat box too. And as we have come to the end of our webinar today, so before we go, I would like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, Professor Nandini Sahu, our distinguished speakers, Ms. Satbir Chadha and Dr. Santosh Bakaya ma'am, for their very insightful speeches, and the beautiful audience and participants for their active participation. And thank you and a very good day. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an intellectually stimulating discussion. I loved everything. Thank you.
Thank you both very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Paramita.
Thank you.